Hello and welcome to chapter number 6 kids, Market Equilibrium. Now, first of all, what do you mean by equilibrium? Equilibrium refers to that situation. Market equilibrium refers to that situation that at that situation the quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. When in market the quantity demanded equals quantity supplied, in that case it is called as equilibrium situation. It is called as market equilibrium. The price at which quantity demanded equates quantity supplied of a commodity, that price is called as equilibrium price. That price is called as equilibrium price. And the quantity at that price is called as equilibrium quantity. So let us understand market first. In market there are two forces operating, demand and supply. When we talk about demand for a good is generated by consumers. Consumers demand a commodity because every commodity has utility. That is the reason they are demanding that commodity, correct? Now, that means that commodity is capable of satisfying the want of a consumer. Consumer is ready to pay price for buying that commodity, but he is ready to pay price for that commodity which gives him higher utility. Consumer would like to pay as low price as possible. If you remember law of demand, higher the price, lower the demand, right? So consumer wants to pay as low price as possible. Now, the maximum price which consumer will be prepared to pay, for a good will be equal to the marginal utility of that commodity. Means every additional commodity which he is buying, okay, additional means marginal. Additional commodity which he is buying is giving him additional utility. He will be willing to pay price, he will be willing to pay maximum that price which is equal to the marginal utility he derives from marginal commodity. In short, marginal utility will decide the highest price limit of a commodity. We have done that in chapter number 3, that consumer would like to pay that price at which his MU, that is marginal utility of a commodity, and price are equal. Next is supply side of the market. Supply is done by producer. The aim of the producer is to make profit. So they would like to charge the price which is as high as possible. Consumer is willing to pay price which is as low as possible. Consumer want to maximize his utility. Producer want to maximize his profit. The minimum limit of the price at which they will be offering the good for sale, there will be a minimum level of price, right, will be equal to the marginal cost of production. So the marginal cost is the lowest limit of the price which they will be willing to charge for it. So for consumer, marginal utility was the highest price limit of a commodity, and for producer, marginal cost is the lowest limit of the price they will be willing to charge. And for consumer, marginal utility will be the highest price limit of a commodity. So basically producer क्या चाहता है कि वो जितना चार्ज कर रहा है, at least he should get that price which he is incurring on every marginal commodity, he should be able to cover his marginal cost of production. That is the price minimum he would like to charge. Consumer would want to pay that much price which is giving him maximum utility. Every marginal utility, what maximum utility he is getting, he will be willing to pay that much price. So both the people have their different expectation, different preferences, right? So equilibrium is a price at which consumer are willing, that price which consumer is willing to pay to purchase same quantity of commodity which producer is willing to sell at that price. The amount of the quantity bought and sold at that price is called as equilibrium quantity. चलो let us understand more in detail with example. ऐसे भी इको example के साथ ज़्यादा अच्छे से समझ में आता है. So now let's say there is a shirt. If we keep the price of the shirt in the market as 1000 rupees, here we will talk about quantity demanded, here we will talk about quantity supply, and here we will see the remarks. Now price of the 1000 is very high. It is less than the marginal utility. The marginal utility of the shirt is less than this price. So consumer will not be willing to pay so much of money for it. But producers will be able to make higher profit. They will be willing to pay. They will be willing to offer more shirts at this price because this is going to maximize their profit. So in this case, the demand generated will be very less, but supply will be very good. Let's say there will be a supply of around 70 shirts. But in this case, demand will be more than supply. Supply will be more than demand. This will create a situation of excess supply. This is not done, like we cannot have excess supply. As a result, what we will do with price? What effect we will bring on price? We will have to lower the price. So let's say now we bring down the shirt price to 900 rupees. So little bit demand in the market will increase, little supply in the market will reduce. Again, this will create a situation of excess supply because still supply is more than demand. But the price is a bit high still. So you will have to bring down the price. Let's say you bring down the price of the shirt to 800. So some demand will increase to 55, some supply will fall down to 55. As a result, in this case, there will be a situation of equilibrium. In this case, you don't need to do anything with the price. This is a perfect price that should be prevailing in the market. Now further, let's say if you still bring down the price of the shirt, demand will keep on increasing because lower the price, higher the demand. So demand will go to maybe 70, supply will fall down to 50. Now this has created a situation of excess demand. So in this case, you will have to increase the price. You still bring down the price of the shirt, 600. The demand will become 80 and the supply will become maybe 40. Again, this is a situation of excess demand. In this case, you will have to increase the price. So did you see, if in the market the prices were above 800 rupees, above 800 rupees, there was a situation of excess supply. There was a situation of excess supply. When the price was less than 800 rupees, there was a situation of excess demand. But at 800 rupees, the demand and supply are equal to each other. So this price of rupees 800 is called as equilibrium price, and the quantity of 55 is called as equilibrium quantity. At this price, both consumer and producers will be happy. At this price, consumer will be willing to buy all the commodity, will be willing to buy. This is the price at which consumer will be willing to buy commodity, and producer will be willing to supply that much commodity. In this, demand and supply will equate each other. But if you charge a price higher than equilibrium price, it creates a situation of excess supply. If you charge a price less than equilibrium price, it creates a situation of excess demand. So if there is an excess demand, we need to increase the price to come to equilibrium. If there is excess supply, we need to lower the price to come back to the equilibrium. Let us understand this little bit with graphically. Now, let me erase this. So we draw y-axis and x-axis. Y-axis represent price. Excuse me. X-axis represent quantity. Now this is our demand curve, and this is our supply curve, and this is the point where they both are intersecting. So this is called as equilibrium quantity, and this is called as equilibrium price. So OP is equilibrium price, OQ is equilibrium quantity. At this point E, demand curve and supply curve both are intersecting each other. So E is a point of equilibrium. Equilibrium price OP, equilibrium quantity OQ. What will happen if we decide to keep the price higher than OP? If you decide to keep the price, equilibrium price is OP. If you decide to keep the price of OP 1, what will happen? Your demand generated will be this much, correct? But your supply generated will be this much. At the price OP1, demand generated, your price, it is intersecting demand curve here. Demand generated will be this. And your price is going to cut supply here, and supply will be here. So can you see, this is a situation of what? Excess supply. In this case, if you see very clearly, your supply curve is ahead of your demand curve. So, if you decide to keep the price, if in the market price is above equilibrium price, can you see this? From, let's call it as point A and point B. From A to B, it is representing excess supply. It is representing excess supply. If you decide to keep the price lower than OP, lower than equilibrium, that is OP2, what will happen to your supply and demand? This is my supply curve. So my supply will be this much. But at that price, my demand will be this. My demand will be this. My supply is, because this is price and supply are intersecting each other. So this is my supply. Price and demand curve are intersecting. This is my demand. So this is a situation of excess demand. This is a situation of excess demand. So if you keep the price lower than equilibrium, let's call it as C and D. So C and D is representing excess demand. It is representing excess demand. So in this case, this is excess supply and this is excess demand. This was a diagrammatic presentation of the tabular table or schedule which we had done. Okay. Now, So remember one thing, in a market, price can be decided only with demand and supply, both the forces. Now we have done, so this is the diagrammatic presentation, kids. Please note it down properly. Now, let us understand, sometimes, so we are in a market, there is an equilibrium price and quantity prevailing, alright. But sometimes what happens is, sometimes there is increase in demand or decrease in demand, or increase in price or increase in supply or decrease in supply, or increase and decrease, whatever, in both. In that case, the equilibrium price will get affected. Equilibrium quantity will also get affected. You remember we had done chapter demand and supply. In demand, I had spoken about various factors besides price which can affect demand. Various factors besides price which can affect demand. For example, we had spoken about credit facility, future price, or we had also spoken about income, substitution effect. Same way in supply also, there were a lot of factors which was causing increase or decrease in supply. So now many times when demand and supply are increasing, decreasing, or both is happening, how will your equilibrium price and quantity get affected? So let's do first. First, let us draw the base diagram. Y-axis, x-axis 0. Here we have quantity and here we have price. This is demand curve. This is supply, equilibrium, equilibrium quantity, equilibrium price. Now listen. Let's say in market, due to some factor, demand has increased. Let's say the income of the consumer increased, so the normal goods demand will increase. The complementary good became cheaper, so the other good demand will increase. Any such factor can happen. So let's say in market, demand increases. When demand increases, the demand curve will shift towards right. And when demand decreases, demand curve shift towards left. So let's say demand increases. So now my demand curve and my supply curve are intersecting each other here, which is E1. Now my new equilibrium quantity will be OQ1 and my new equilibrium price will be OP1. So when demand increased, what happened to equilibrium quantity? What happened to equilibrium price? Equilibrium quantity also increased and equilibrium price also increased. Correct? When demand increased. Okay, what if in economy, in market, demand decreases? So what will happen to demand curve? Demand curve will shift, let's say D2, D2. They are going to now intersect each other here. Let's call it as E2. So now, when demand decreases, my new equilibrium quantity is OQ2 and my new equilibrium price is OP2. Did you see when demand is decreasing, my equilibrium quantity is also decreasing, equilibrium price is also decreasing. So when there is increase in demand without changing supply, there is no change in supply, only demand is increasing. Your equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price both will increase. When there is change in demand, means your demand falls down, without demand decreases, without change in supply. It will bring down equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. So when demand increases, demand curve shift to right. When demand decreases, demand curve shift to left. Alright, now the next thing. Let's see, now ulta we do. What happened when supply increases or decreases? When supply increases or decreases, okay? Y, X, 0. Quantity, price, demand, OQ is our equilibrium quantity and OP is equilibrium price. Now comes a situation in the market when supply has increased. Maybe the technology has become very advanced or government is giving subsidy. That has caused increase in supply. Increase in supply means rightward shift in supply. So supply curve shift to right, S1, S1. So now the new equilibrium is this E1. What will happen to equilibrium quantity? Increased. But what will happen to equilibrium price? Will fall down. So when supply increases, but there is no change in demand. Demand is not changing. In that case, equilibrium quantity will increase, but equilibrium price will decrease. What if government imposed tax, or maybe the technologies become very old, outdated, or the natural factors were not favorable? It will cause decrease in supply. Decrease in supply means leftward shift of supply curve. Now your new equilibrium will be E2. In this case, what is happening? So when supply is falling with no change in demand, our equilibrium quantity fell down and equilibrium price increased. Correct? This is the effect of increase or decrease in supply on equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. Now let us see a situation when both are increasing or both are decreasing. Let us do that. That too in same proportion. Both are increasing in same proportion. Okay. Now both are increasing or both are decreasing in same proportion. So demand has gone, demand increasing, shifting rightward. Same proportion it should be. Supply also increasing in the same proportion. So both will shift to rightward. Now new equilibrium is here. Our equilibrium quantity will increase, but equilibrium price will remain unaffected. Equilibrium quantity will increase, but equilibrium price will remain still OP only, it will remain unaffected. Now what if one is increasing more, other is decreasing less? So kids like this, they can give you any situation with the help of case study where you will have to identify whether it is increase or decrease of demand or supply or both. And accordingly we will be shifting them rightward or leftward and will be showing the change on the equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. Now if I say now if they say what is the effect if demand changes more than supply? Demand has increased more than supply. Both have increased but demand has increased more. So we will show the gap of demand more. Rightward shift. Supply is also rightward shift but lesser. So now the new equilibrium. Quantity will be here and equilibrium price will be here. So that has brought what change? Equilibrium price and quantity both will increase. They can ask you ulta also, what if demand increases less and supply increases more? What if demand increases more and supply increases more and demand increases less? Same way we will show but what are we going to present in that? Supply is increasing more. Let's shift rightward, supply more. Demand is increasing less. D1 will be little less. Will be little closer. So now both the curves are intersecting, new intersecting curve here. Equilibrium quantity will increase. Equilibrium price will fall down. Equilibrium price will fall down. So these are the various situations can come up showing the effect in different cases. Now let us understand the 4 special cases of perfectly elastic demand and supply, perfectly elastic and inelastic supply, and perfectly elastic and inelastic demand. So let me first show a situation when the demand is perfectly inelastic and a situation when the demand is perfectly elastic. How is going to be our supply curve? Like this. This is our supply curve and this is our point of intersection. Now in this case, if supply increases, that means there is a rightward shift. My new equilibrium will be E1. My equilibrium quantity will remain same, but my equilibrium price will fall down. If my supply decreases, means it shifts to leftward, my new equilibrium will be E2 here. My equilibrium quantity will remain same, but my equilibrium price will increase. Equilibrium price will increase. So when there is a situation of perfectly inelastic demand, if there is a rightward shift, increase in supply or decrease in supply, our demand doesn't get affected at all. Only your price will increase or price will decrease. Similarly, here, if it is a situation of perfectly elastic demand, and this is our supply curve with E as an intersection, OQ is equilibrium quantity and OP is equilibrium price. Now in this case, if supply increases S1, the new equilibrium is going to be E1 here. Equilibrium quantity will increase, equilibrium price will remain unaffected. If S2, again equilibrium quantity will decrease, equilibrium price will remain unaffected. So in the situation of perfectly elastic demand, only your quantity will increase or decrease, your price will remain unaffected. Similar situation we can have for perfectly elastic and inelastic supply. Now demand curve is going to be like this. This is our intersection point. OQ is equilibrium quantity, OP is equilibrium price. Now in this case, if demand increases, it shifts rightward. D1. New equilibrium is this. Equilibrium quantity will increase. If demand decreases, D2. Here, equilibrium quantity will decrease, equilibrium price will remain unaffected. Similarly here, demand, this is equilibrium, price and quantity. So if my demand increases, my equilibrium price will get affected, it will increase, but quantity will remain unaffected. My equilibrium, when demand decreases, Equilibrium price will fall, equilibrium quantity will remain unaffected. This was E2, this was E1. So under perfectly elastic and inelastic demand and supply, we saw both price and quantity doesn't change, one remain unaffected. Now the last concept in this chapter we have to understand is price ceiling and floor price. Let us understand what is price ceiling and what is floor price. So price ceiling is the maximum legal price. Some of the times we have seen government fixes the price of certain commodities. For example, if you see electricity charges units, lot of products prices are decided by government. Government on that put a limit for these commodities, which are basically our essential commodities, the maximum price which can be charged, government will put a limit on that. That is called as price ceiling. Means it is a maximum legal price and any suppliers cannot charge price higher than this. They cannot charge price higher than this. Okay. So that is called as price ceiling. That is called as price ceiling. Price ceiling makes it illegal for the supplier to sell a commodity at a price higher than this. In fact, in many of the countries, government has passed such price legislation act to make sure that certain essential commodities are available to people at a reasonable price. And this is mainly to protect the exploitation of the lower income group. Now, price ceiling will always be charged mainly on wheat, kerosene, petrol, oil, sugar, okay. Now, government will decide to charge price. Equilibrium price is charged always. Equilibrium price is charged always. Price ceiling is charged always below the equilibrium price. Now, if you remember, I had told in the beginning that if you try to sell anything higher than the price of the equilibrium price, it will create a situation of excess supply. And whenever you try to sell anything lower than the equilibrium price, it creates a situation of excess supply. Now, if you will charge more than equilibrium price, it will create a situation of excess supply. Correct? This is a situation of excess supply. If you decide to charge lesser than equilibrium price, it will create a situation of excess demand. But when government puts up the price ceiling, they put it below equilibrium. So always remember one thing, price ceiling will be below equilibrium price. Price ceiling is always charged below equilibrium price. But now that will create a situation of excess demand. So how are we going to handle that situation? So there are some possible methods to handle the situation of excess demand. For example, we can follow first come first serve method. The one who comes first will get the maximum product. First come first basis follow कर सकते हैं. Many times they stand in the queue and because there is a limited stock, so people stand in queue and then they get accordingly. So that is a very good thing. Or sometime seller can decide whom he or she wants to sell. The selling can be done according to seller's preference. Seller would decide, I want to sell this much quantity of goods to X customer or Y customer. So selling by preference can also be done. That is seller's choice. Or rationing. So basically essential commodities like food grain, kerosene, sugar, all this government nowadays to make it available to people at a very, very reasonable price, they follow the method of rationing. In this, goods are distributed in a certain quantity of a product at a price which are fixed by government through government authorized shop. Those shops are called as fair price shop or they are also called as ration shops. Over there, every person is given ration card. The ration card holder according to the what income age group what income range they come under, ration card is allotted, and then according to your ration card which is showing the number of members in the family, you will be allotted certain fixed quantity in that government store at the prices which are fixed by government. This will allow a family to buy good quantity of commodity for the entire family. So this is also a very common method of handling the situation of excess demand. But only one ill effect we face during this period is many of the producers artificially try to create scarcity. They do hoarding of goods. And they create shortage. And then they start selling all those commodities at a very higher price illegally in black market. So black market is basically they are selling everything at a higher price illegally. So and there will be some consumers who will be willing to pay extra and they will buy also. So this is a ill effect of excess demand many of the times we see. So this is price ceiling, which is also called as maximum price legislation, and remember it is decided, it is fixed below the equilibrium price, but it creates situation of excess demand, and we discussed how we handle that situation of excess demand. Then we have the next, floor price. Floor price is minimum price legislation. Now, government also has to think about producers. See, producers are doing activity of production. They should be getting certain decent returns that will motivate them to produce more. Correct? If they are not even getting the basic returns, they might stop the production activity. So it is important that in market both producer and consumer both should be in a win-win situation. They definitely expect some remunerative, some lucrative prices to be getting in return for the production activity, for the risk they are taking. So in this case, government has decided to keep the price. Government fix up the price. That is the price which any producer minimum should get for their products. Government fix up the price for a commodity which every producer minimum should get when they sell their product from the market. And that price is called as floor price. That price is called as floor price. Floor price is going to benefit producers. Now, they keep the price, floor price is kept above equilibrium. It is kept above equilibrium. But now that will create a situation of excess supply. Correct? It is decided as above equilibrium. It will create a situation of excess supply. In this case, how are we going to handle this situation? So government in India has persuaded such a minimum support price. In case of so minimum support price they don't keep for all commodities. Usually this they are keeping for the farmers, for agricultural commodities. Because farmers are producing food grains, and what if in market they don't even get the decent price for their commodities. So government in India has decided minimum support price for agricultural commodities, जिसको बोला जाता है floor price. It is charged above equilibrium. So it is going to create a situation of excess supply. Now, how will this price ceiling help? So now when it is above equilibrium, there will be excess supply. So maybe farmers or the producers, in our example of farmer, will not be able to sell all their commodities. Now when they are not able to sell all their commodities, government will be ready to buy from them. Government will be ready to buy from them at the price which has been decided in the floor price. Usually government buys from them for their buffer stock. So that whenever there is a shortage or goods need to be distributed through ration shops, that buffer stock can be used. So farmers are assured in our country, even if they are producing so much of food grains, they are at least assured that minimum this much price they are going to get in return for their food grains. So we have a concept of minimum support price. That is why we have minimum support price, which is also called as floor price. So remember one thing, price ceiling is below equilibrium and floor price is above equilibrium. And you need to know very well the effect of both of them and how is that effect going to be handled. Alright kids, thank you so much.